Hello, Cardinals. It's Monday, October 31st. Happy Halloween. And we are setting up 3 pages in our notebook today to kick off Lesson 5, which is going to be all about potential and kinetic energy. On page 48, you should have taped in the objectives for this lesson. We're going to get to that in a minute. On page 49, you need to save a page for vocabulary. And then on page 50, we're going to be working on getting started today. And our focus question for the entire week is, how can gravity affect the motions of objects on Earth? So as we get started, we want to look at our objectives. There are 5 of them. You're going to want to number them 1 through 5. And looking at the first one, it says differentiate between potential energy and kinetic energy. So as you read the articles today, as you think about the different situations we're going to go through, you really need to start thinking about what is potential energy, what is kinetic energy, and what is the difference between them. All right, they're related to each other. I'm assuming you've heard of them before, but you need to fully understand potential and kinetic energy before we start investigation 5.1 tomorrow. So the introduction is all about a swimming pool and a diving board. So just thinking about how the height of the diving board might matter. Will the water feel different on your feet if you jump from the 1 meter springboard or the 3 meter? So how would it feel differently on the higher ones? And if you move to the 10 meter one, if you remember back to the Olympics at Rio this summer, maybe you saw Olympic high diving and thinking about how it would feel to jump from a 10 meter platform as opposed to the 1. And as you read the introduction, it says the higher you are willing to begin your jump, the more energy you will have when you hit the water. In this lesson, you will explore how height, mass, and energy are related to motion. So we're going to be focusing a lot about height and mass and energy as it relates to items falling towards the earth. And as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, it says TB page 64. If you want to be looking at this, it's on textbook page 64. So as you move to the page 65, the getting started, the first one just talks about, keeping your notebook up to date and taking good notes. But as we move forward, number 2 asks you about to write what you know about energy and think about the following questions as you write. So 2A would be, what is energy? 2B is, where do you find sources of energy? And 2C, how can you tell if something has energy? So you would write this in your notebook on page 50, the getting started page. It's also on page 65 in your textbook. So just getting you thinking about energy. Then you need to move on to number 3. You need to read and code. That's why you have a packet on page 66 and through 68. And this is on building your knowledge. So reading about potential and kinetic energy. And, feel free to code your article as you're reading and take notes if you want. This is the place where you're going to start, building your knowledge base on potential and kinetic energy. And your notes and whatever you would write here would go on page 50 in your notebook. After you finish reading that article and taking some notes, in your science notebook, it says list 3 examples mentioned in this lesson or in your everyday life that relate to potential and kinetic energy. So maybe activities you do outside of school, things you've done in the past, just listing some examples of how everyday life involves potential and kinetic energy. And then for number 5, now that you understand what potential and kinetic energy are, it's time to learn about how it's measured by reading your building your knowledge, gravitational potential energy. And here again is your chance to take notes in your notebook. You can use those on quizzes and always code your reading. That's why you have a packet. So that would be in your textbook, page 69, and also in your packet. And any notes you took would go on page 50. And remember, you can use your notebook on quizzes. Finally, number 6, you're going to write the equation for gravitational potential energy in your science notebook and discuss the following questions with your group. If your group hasn't finished the quiz, then just hold off on that. But 6A says, how could you increase gravitational potential energy? And 6B says, how could you decrease it? So thinking about the equation for gravitational potential energy and how could you increase it and how could you decrease it? All right. And you'll also have an exit slip at the end of the hour talking about, the relationship between weight and newtons and mass of the same object in grams and using the equation. But you'll have that exit slip in your hand, so you'll be able to read that. So finally, a big to-do list. You're going to finish the quiz and then watch this video. You have getting started on page 65. There are 6 steps to that, reminding you to keep your work neat and finish it completely. asking you to write about energy, to read that article about kinetic and potential energy on 66 through 68, figuring out some examples of potential and kinetic energy, reading gravitational potential energy, and finally writing and discussing what you learned about gravitational potential energy. If you get time at the end, you could look ahead to investigation 5.1 and 5.2. Have a good day, Cardinals.